Hello friends! In the previous lesson, we created our first material. And now we will make it a bit more complex. We will add the ability to scale the texture up and down, stretch it along certain axes, as well as rotate, and move it if necessary. Let's go! So, let's open our master material. We are in the same place as we were. And, as I mentioned in the previous lesson, we need to pull out a node called texture coordinate. Click, type texture, or the hotkey U on the English keyboard and click. So, to enable us to stretch our texture, as we can see, this node already has its own parameters. U-tiling and V-tiling. That is, we can, by connecting it like this to our texture, by pressing apply, see that now our texture looks like this. By changing this parameter, let me set it to 3. We press apply, and we see that our texture has significantly reduced, more precisely, by 3 times. But each time we have to return to our master material, select our node and enter the values. Accordingly, this doesn't suit us. We need variable parameters. To change them, let's add a multiply node. As we already know, M, click, and through the multiply node, we will connect our texture coordinates to our textures. We do it like this. And similarly, as we have already done, a variable parameter is S-click. Let's write that this is tiling. We'll set it to 1 by default. Connect it, press apply. Let's simply go back. But let's also reset the default values in the texture coordinates to 1s. And now we will open our instance. Here is our instance, and we see that an additional parameter called tiling has appeared. And now, by increasing or decreasing it, we will see in real time how our texture enlarges or shrinks. Currently, this happens proportionally, meaning along both one axis and the other axis. Let's add the ability to stretch our texture along the X or Y axis if desired. Let's return to our master material. We will need another multiply. So let's disconnect our textures. To disconnect any node, we hold down Alt and click with the mouse. We need another multiply. Press M-click, connect it. To make it more convenient for us to connect our textures, let's do it like this. Connect. 1. Double-click somewhere on the line. It will create this kind of junction. And from it, we will connect all the other textures. And now, if we disconnect our multiply, later it will be. You just need to connect this node, and immediately all 3 textures will automatically connect. And now we will use a new node called append. Vector. What does it do? It takes 2 values and simply does not add them, does not combine them, but simply forwards them as a whole. What do I mean? That is, let's duplicate our tiling, press Ctrl D, and just add tiling X, and duplicate it once more, and add Y. We have 2 values, but as we can see, multiply has only 1 input, and append has 1 output. It allows us to take these 2 values. It doesn't add them, doesn't combine them, it just transfers them as a vector. That is, a vector we already know. From our color, that a vector has several values. That is, in the case of color, it is RGB, red, blue, and green. That is, these are 3 values. And the append combines 2 additional parameters and sends them further as a vector. Thus, if we now connect all values to our textures, press apply, and return to our instance. we have additional tilings appearing. Let's disable this general one and enable the new ones. And, as we can see, now we can compress or stretch our texture only along the x-axis. And similarly, compress and stretch the texture along the y-axis, if we need to do this separately. But we also have the option for overall scaling of our texture. Now, we need to rotate our texture. To add the ability to rotate, we return to our master. Let's make a little more space. And for this indeed, there is a special node specifically called Custom. Rotator. This is such a node. We take our results again, pass them through it, connect it, and we see that we have two additional codes inputs here. And we have a hint v2, which means it is a vector 2. Press 2 on the keyboard and click. We have a vector 2, and this is the point around which our texture will rotate. We just need to connect zeros, meaning the zero of ordinates, and our texture will rotate around this point. And the second value is the rotation angle s. This means that it is a scalar parameter, that is a variable parameter. We press S, click, and write that this is rotation, and connect it. But look, there's a nuance. In the brackets, it says from 0 to 1, so it will be a bit inconvenient. At 0, we will have 0 degrees, and at 1, it will be 360 degrees. It will be very inconvenient for us to calculate what number we need to enter to rotate to a specific degree. To fix this, using some advanced mathematics, what we'll do is divide this rotation value by 360 and connect the result here. And in this way, we will be able to enter not from 0 to 1, but specifically a degree. Let's find divide to divide. We will first connect our value here. The result goes into the rotation angle, and we divide our rotation by 360. Press apply, and let's check what we've got. Let's return to our material, open our instance. We now have rotation, and let's set the rotation, 45 degrees. Our texture has rotated by 45 degrees. 90. Our texture is back to 90. And so on and so on. Okay? All that's left for us is the ability to shift our texture. That is, to move the pattern itself, not to enlarge or reduce it, just to shift it, similar to an offset in 3D Max. Let's return to our master. Again, a little, create some space, disconnect our rotator. And now we will use a new node with you, which is called Add. Add. Since we will be shifting our texture, meaning we don't need to multiply anything, we will be adding coordinates. Accordingly, we use Add. And then we can use the same method we did here. Select our tiling X and Y with Append. Press Ctrl D. And simply rename it to Offset X and Offset Y. Set the defaults to 0 because this is addition. Connect them and connect the result to our textures. Press apply. And let's check. Open the instance. We see new parameters have been added. And let's try offset X. We turn it and see that our texture doesn't change in size. It just shifts along the axis we need. Also along Y. This is very convenient if we need it on several objects. For example, we will copy another one. And to avoid repeating our texture, we simply make a duplicate of our material, apply it. And all we need to do here is shift our texture along certain axes. And we have already broken the repetition and it looks as if we have two different materials here. But as we can see, after we created our material, we made it a bit more complex. We have a lot of parameters, so let's organize them a bit. Let's return to our master material. All of this is responsible for tiling. Let's add comments. What are comments? We can select our nodes and press this on the keyboard, the English key. A comment box appears and we can write that this is tiling. Also, there are our textures. We can separate them as well. Move them, press comment, and write that this is textures. So this is all that remains. We can call it, as we have already discussed with you, that it is a kind of like a mini Photoshop built into music, our material. Let's call this post-processing. Post-process. There you go. Also, these frames can be given color. That is, our post-process can be something like purple, for example. Textures. Let's make them blue. And let the tiling be red. Go. This will be later, when we further complicate our material. These comments will allow us not to get confused about what is responsible for what. Okay, now let's group a little all our parameters. Let's return to our instance. And we see that our group is now called global scalar parameter values, meaning just some variable parameters, and also global texture parameter values, some textures there, and the same applies to the vector. Because we also have a color that we can blend with our texture, we can group all our values into separate groups. How does it look? Let's start with tiling. Select all variable parameters. Hold Shift and click on all our variable parameters that correspond to tiling. And here we see there is a group. By default, it says none, no group. And let's write that this is the tiling group. And to have this group at the very top, I always like to put a number. 0, diffuse, tiling. Okay, press apply. After which, when we return to our material instance, we see that the tiling group has appeared. Opening it, we see only the parameters related to tiling. And we can also set the sequence of these parameters themselves. How is this done? We also return to our master material and choose, for example, I want the overall tiling to be first. So here we have sort priority. Set it to 0. In Unreal, all counting starts not from 1, but from 0. So it will be first for us. Later, I want there to be 2 tilings, X and Y. I'll insert 1, 2. Later, let there be rotation. This will be 3 for us. And offsets. 4 and 5. After pressing apply, we see that there is tiling. Tiling X, Y, rotation, and offsets. Great. Now let's move on to the next parameters. We've dealt with tiling. Next, we have textures. Let's select our 3 textures. We'll put them into the texture group. We'll place it here. Tiling with us. 0. Textures will be 1. Textures. And let base color be 0. Roughness 1. And normal map 2. Press apply. Great. And next we have post-process. Here we have brightness, desaturation, tiling. Let's keep all 3 of them together. Let's name this. This will be group NURB2, diffuse, post. We'll add roughness and metallic to group. 3 diffuse reflections. And normal will be, as expected, separately in the 4th group, normal. Well, said it well. Metallic will be the first in its group. Roughness will be second. And tiling. Let it be first. Brightness will be second, and desaturation will be third. Press apply, and let's check what we've got. We open our instance and see that everything is divided into groups. The first group is tiling. The second is textures to change. The third is post, to add color, remove color, contrast, and so on, later. The third group is everything related to reflections, that is, whether it's metallic and how shiny, or matte it is. And normal, the strength of our normal map. This is how we created a slightly more complex material, grouped all our values, and now we can create any materials of any size, control it all in real time, and later complicate our material even further. This is how simply we made it a bit more complex, our material. In the next videos, we will make it even more complex, so subscribe not to miss out. Give us a like, and in the comments, let us know what to film next, the next videos. And as always, see you next time.